With the help of the Department of Agriculture, we continue to cut the red tape for families to participate in the Women and Infants Children Program, the so-called WIC program. I recently signed legislation to help make it easier for families to get the formula they need through the WIC program. I called on all 50 states to take action, and all 50 states answered the call, working with us to make that program more flexible. And we're going to stay focused on doing even more. I'm going to make sure that families in every part of the country can get the formula they need. And I look forward to our conversations today. So I want to thank you all. And now I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Secretary. I'm going to have you speak now and your remarks, and then we're going to hand it over to Samira, behind me here. All yours, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. President, let me start by thanking you for convening today's roundtable. At your direction, we are working 24/7 to get infant formula into the hands of parents across the country. As my team at HHS recently told Alexa, a mom from Leesburg, Virginia, whose son's a 1.5-year-old and a 6-month-old require specialty infant formula, getting more formula, particularly specialty formula, on shelves quickly and safely is a priority for us. Mr. President, thanks for your leadership. And thanks to that leadership, we have partnered with federal colleagues across the administration to support Operation Fly Formula, to bring formula in from other countries and bring it in swiftly and safely. In addition, the FDA is working with Abbott to get its facility to reopen safely. And we are working to quickly and safely bolster the supply of products so that the industry can get them to people in urgent need with a focus on specialty formula. Under a consent decree with the FDA, Abbott agreed to take corrective actions following an FDA inspection of its Sturgis, Michigan facility, actions that are expected to ultimately result in an increase in the safety of infant formula. As I have invoked the Defense Production Act 3 times already, that was done to accelerate delivery of raw materials needed to manufacture infant formula for America's families. And one more important point. At HHS, we have launched a new online hub, hhs.gov/formula, to help parents and caregivers navigate their baby formula options. At hhs.gov/formula, parents and caregivers can connect to community resources, such as community centers or an accredited food bank. They can connect to preliminary recommendations from physicians and clinicians, and they can check if the brand of formula they rely on was affected by Abbott's recall. We invite feedback from the public and plan to update this page further in the coming days. And all of this information can be found in multiple languages. We're engaging governors across the country so that they too have the latest information on how to help families in their states navigate their needs. And we're working closely with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to support the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infant, and Children, the WIC program, to ensure WIC families can access new supplies of baby formula as they become available. We will keep working 24/7 to make sure parents have the infant formula they need. But remember, HHS, FDA, USDA, we're not manufacturers. We need infant formula manufacturers and the industry as a whole to keep stepping up and working with us. As you've made clear, Mr. President, only together can we solve this challenge and get families the infant formula they need. And with that, let me now turn to Deputy Director Samira Fazli for her comments.
Thank you, Secretary Becerra. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. What we'll do now is turn to the manufacturers and get some updates. We last spoke to you in mid-May, heard about the work you were doing, building upon a lot of the work that the administration had been doing diligently since February. But I want to begin with Robert Cleveland. And since we last spoke to you, we've now invoked the Defense Production Act and want to hear how the Defense Production Act is enabling Reckitt to speed up its production of infant formula.
Sure, I'd be happy to address that, and thank you for convening this roundtable. As the next largest manufacturer of scale after Abbott in the United States, getting as many feedings to shelf as possible has been an enormous priority for us. We've left no stone unturned in the way we can do that safely and in a high quality manner. And since the recall event occurred, there are a number of actions we've taken. First and foremost, our plants are running 24/7 with unlimited overtime. We've optimized our portfolio to focus on those products that move through our plants the fastest. And we've worked with our retail and our distribution partners to ensure that our trucks are getting to distribution centers and prioritized with our retail partners like Walmart and Target, Kroger, such that our trucks are unloaded first and feedings get to shelf faster. Because it's not just about more, it's about how much more we can put at shelf. And since the recall began, or since the beginning of the year, we have been able to increase the amount we've put to market by over 30% and to do it 40% faster. To dimensionalize that a little bit more, that's about 211,000 more infants that we're feeding after the recall than before the recall. But to address your question directly on the impact of the Defense Production Act, when we spoke to the White House middle of last month, there were a number of very rapid actions that the government took, and we're very appreciative of them. Part of it is the Defense Production Act. We have been the beneficiary of one implementation of that got us some essential oil to our manufacturing process. But there have also been calls from staffers from the NEC and HHS to other manufacturers who supply to us. And those calls alone have been helpful. And because of those calls, because of all that's been done, we now have a production schedule in June where we're looking to produce 40 million feedings per week. And that's because we have a special and temporary responsibility to produce more than half of the infant formula in the US. And our employees are dedicated to meeting that responsibility. And in fact, over Memorial Day weekend, worked to produce another 5 million feedings at our plants in Michigan and Indiana. And they couldn't have done that without the efforts to get us more inputs through the DPA and the efforts of the staffers at HHS and NEC.
We have some breaking news for you now. A Virginia jury has reached a verdict in the trial involving actors Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Let's listen in.
If I could have the attorneys approach for a moment. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what I need you to do, I need to give the forms back to you. When you find for a defamatory statement, one or more, you need to fill out the compensatory damages. It has to be at least $1 for compensatory damages and up to whatever you feel the damages should be. And for punitive damages, you can put a 0 there, or you can fill out that as well, but I need those lines filled out, okay? All right, so if I can have you retire back to the deliberation room and do that for me, okay? All right, so we'll be in recess till we hear back from them. Don't go too far, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right.
Just to explain a little bit of what just happened there.
That was a bit of a surprise.
There was a surprise. The jury is going to have to take a recess because there were some forms that were improperly filled out. And so they've been sent back to fill those forms out. In the meantime, we're going to bring in legal contributor and Loyola law professor Jessica Levinson. So, Jessica, explain what just happened there and why there's a delay in reading the verdict.
So what just happened is that it sounds like the jury did not complete the verdict form. And so we're talking about, obviously, a case for defamation. There was a suit and a countersuit. And when we sue in civil court, we're always asking for either one of two things, or sometimes both. We're asking for money, or we're asking for somebody to stop doing something or start doing something. In this case, we're asking for money. It sounds like, the big takeaway here is that there was a finding of defamation, but we need the remedy. And that's what was missing here. What was missing is, and how much do you have to pay as a result of this defamatory statement? One of the key provisions of defamation is that you need to have a harm. And it looks like the jury concluded that there was a harm, but didn't put any monetary damage on that. That's what we're waiting for. And that's why the judge said, look, it can be low. It can be $1. It can be 50 cents. But we need to have that monetary amount. We have to find a monetary damage here.
So, Jessica, that would suggest that they did find that there was defamation. Again, we don't know on which side. Perhaps they thought $0 is the compensatory damage, and they left it blank. Again, I'm speculating here, but what would explain them finding defamation but leaving the compensatory damage line blank?
It is really interesting because the judge basically gave it away, right? We know that there's a defamation finding here, unless all of us completely misunderstood what happened. But the judge said, you've got to fill that in when you find defamation. Now, again, we don't know which side, but what could explain that? Frankly, I think it's bad jury instruction. So somebody needed to tell the jury very specifically what they need to fill out. This isn't the jury's fault. The jurors aren't all lawyers. And so what they need to fill out, and if they find defamation, that they can't leave that part blank.
Doesn't someone give the foreman these sorts of instructions, Jessica?
Yes, but I will say that most trials in this country, you and I aren't talking about them. Most trials in this country don't get this level of attention. And this is not meant to be critical, but I think in a lot of courtrooms throughout the country, there are moments where the lawyers say, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, we forgot to instruct the jurors on, or the judge says, you know what, clearly this particular jury instruction was not clear. Now, when it comes to cases of all types, both civil and criminal, you have lots of fights over jury instructions. But again, just because it's so important, but again, just speculating, it sounds like there was some breakdown between what the jury was told and then what they ultimately did.
We're talking about a case between two movie actors here, and we're having a very dramatic conclusion. We know that the jury, it appears, found that there was defamation, but Depp is suing Heard for defamation, $50 million. She's countersued him for $100 million. We don't know which way this has gone. We know they've been deliberating since Friday.
Right, but this suggests that this recess could take a while, because it's not like they were just told to go back and dot some I's and cross some T's. They've got to come up with a number. So now they could be thinking about this for a while. I don't think they'll just turn right back around and have a number instantly. Jessica, what do you think?
So I don't know. I did hear the judge say, don't go too far away. So it's possible, and jurors are, of course, people who want to get back to their lives. It is possible that they wrestled with this for a long time, as we said, not just an afternoon of deliberations, and that they're basically done and that they want to get to a conclusion quickly. Now, the fact that the judge said don't go too far away indicates to me that we don't think this is going to reopen deliberations, that there's the hope that they go back and say, well, there was some harm, but probably a low amount. I think, and again, this is a guess, what we might be looking for is some sort of token amount of compensatory damages, because if the jurors, at least for one part of the verdict, again, there could be multiple findings here of defamation, but if at least for one finding, they left that amount blank, it could indicate that they think that the legal factors, that these prongs are satisfied, that there is a false statement of fact, that it did harm somebody's reputation, that it was made with actual malice, but maybe they don't think it really caused some sort of great monetary damage here. Again, trying to read the tea leaves of what we heard and what could have happened.
Very, very difficult to do that, of course, without speculating. I want to bring in also CBS News correspondent Christina Ruffini, who joins us from Fairfax County Court in Virginia. Christina, where you've been covering this trial. So as we wait for the jury to finish coming up with this number, can you paint a picture for us of the scene outside the courthouse and whether both Heard and Depp are there? I believe Depp may be abroad in England. Is that right?
That's correct. Someone close to Johnny Depp issued a statement saying that due to previously scheduled work commitments, he wouldn't be here for this verdict today. And that's interesting, right? Because you think about this case has played out so publicly, and many people have said that for Johnny Depp, this was not about this verdict that's about to be read. It was actually about the court of public opinion. So you have to wonder if he thinks that it's okay that he not be present today, if that's an indication that regardless of the verdict, he thinks he's already done what he needed to do. Now, there is a crowd of supporters. Our producer says they're mostly pro Johnny Depp. We've just arrived here a little while ago. I got here about an hour before the verdict was going to be read, and it was calmer than I thought it would be. But as I've been standing here the last 45 minutes, you've seen people start to kind of wheel around the corner. There's been cars cutting around the corner, trying to find parking, trying to get up there. By the time I went into the building and by the time I came back out, there were dozens of people all kind of waiting with their phones out. As you open the door, they all gasped waiting to see somebody. And I had to say, no, guys, it's just me. We've got a news chopper overhead. And everybody's just kind of waiting for an anticipation to see what's going to happen. And as you were just talking about, this was not what everyone was expecting with this misunderstanding with the jury coming out and then having to go back. So it's unclear how long we've been asked to wait. But as you heard the judge, she said, don't go far. So we're hanging out.
This, of course, has been a dominant topic on social media the entire trial. Of course, Amber Heard's op-ed made allegations that she was an abuse survivor. Johnny Depp says it's not accurate that he abused her. Why, in your view, has this struck such a chord on social media?
Well, it's a couple things, right? Johnny Depp is an extremely famous person. Amber Heard is also a famous person. You have these two high-profile people, and watching celebrity marriages, for better or worse, has become kind of this sick sport, especially on social media. There's all kinds of apps. There's all kinds of, sites that you can go to watch. And so people have been watching this kind of fall apart in real time, and it's almost like a form of entertainment. But underneath that, something that's really worrying domestic violence advocates and people who advocate for domestic violence victims are saying that, look, this is a real marriage. These are real people. And it's been clear over the weeks of this trial that it was a very dysfunctional, violent, unhappy, and either verbally abusive or physically abusive. This was not a fun marriage, it seems, the last couple of weeks that have come out in this trial. And there are concerns that the dynamic of this, the way it's been picked up, the publicity, are going to lead to either domestic violence victims being afraid to come forward, possible abusers, potential abusers, then going back and trying to countersue people who accuse them of domestic violence, which again could inhibit people from coming forward, and just changing the dynamic of the way people separate in marriages that are already troubled and already falling apart. There's that saying that nobody knows what goes on in someone else's marriage, and sometimes even the two people don't really know what's going on inside their marriage. And I think that's something we've seen come out in these last few days, and we'll have to see how this plays out today, as hopefully we do get a verdict the next hour or so.
Right. You bring up a good point that these are two people. This is a real marriage. This is not just, some fodder for public entertainment.
Which is why it's so sad.
Which is why it's so sad, exactly. But Jessica, to Christina's point, Jessica, if you're still with us, I'm curious, could the jury find there was defamation on both sides?
case was styled because of the original suit and the countersuit. Now, of course, parts of the case, you can't find that there's two defamations in the sense that either somebody's telling the truth. There are parts where there's a he said, she said, and somebody is either telling the truth or somebody is lying, and you can't have kind of a mutual defamation. But there are other parts where I think it's more nuanced, and you could find that they, in different ways that don't match up, did in fact defame each other. One thing that's interesting about these defamation cases that's kind of we've been talking about, it's almost a backdoor way to prove different types of conduct. So I'm thinking about the E. Jean Carroll case that was filed against President Trump. She said he sexually assaulted me. He said, no, I don't. That's a joke. I would never do it. I'm, of course, paraphrasing. She sues him for defamation for saying there's no way that happened. And so it becomes this backdoor way of litigating the underlying conduct, which is kind of what we're seeing here. It's a backdoor way of trying to find out what happened in this marriage. Was there physical abuse? Was there verbal abuse? What type of really distressing behavior really did take place? And that's why I think we could potentially get defamation on both sides. I don't think that's very likely.
Jessica, Christina, stand by for us. We also want to loop in Rachel Fizet on this conversation. She is the co-founder and managing partner of the Los Angeles law firms Wybach, Fizet and Coleman. Rachel, how, just to update our viewers, the judge sent the jury back to calculate compensatory damage. How is the jury coming up with the number right now? What are they considering?
Well, we have two possible compensatory damages, which is, did he win or did she win? And I agree with Jessica, they both didn't win. So somebody won here. If I were placing bets, I might say Johnny Depp won. And they are now going through the evidence that was presented, hopefully not for the first time. Hopefully this was just a bit of an oversight by the jury, and determining how much money that op-ed article cost him, or if his damages, if there are any, are the result of the other things where experts testified, from Johnny Depp's behavior on the set to alcoholism and drug abuse. So they have to now calculate what amount of damages he lost as a result of her statements.
So when you look...
If it's him.
Right, if it's him, right, exactly. So Rachel, when you look back and you consider, the entire trial, what more could either team have done, do you think, to make their particular case?
I think Johnny Depp's team did what they set out to do, and they set out to make this a bit of a circus, a bit of one person's credibility against the other. I think they wanted to dive deep into each fact and for him to vindicate himself and tell the world that she was instead the abuser and he was a victim. As far as Amber Heard's team, I think as she was the defendant to start this, she played defense on this type of thing. And I think that if I were saying where her mistakes were made and where her team's mistakes were made, is that they dug too deep into too many incidents, such that some of these sounded perhaps to the jury uncredible, whereas simple abuse, I think, might have gotten this done as to her truth. So they dug so deep, and so many of these incidents were so horrendous, whether they happened or not, it became, I think, perhaps in the jury's mind, a case of could it have happened that way? And not could it have happened at all in any way.
So again, we're waiting for the jury to return to the courtroom after the judge instructed them to calculate compensatory damage. They're rising now. The judge is returning to the courtroom. Let's listen in.
All right. Shall we try this again? All right. Let's do that. All right. We're ready for the jury. right, Mr. Foreperson, is this the verdict of the jury?
Yes.
All right, is it unanimous?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Jamie?
In civil case number CL 2019-2911, Mr. Depp's claim against Ms. Heard. 1. As to the statement appearing in the online op-ed entitled, "Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change," in the Washington Post online edition. Quote, "I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change," end quote. Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes. Has Mr. Depp proven by a greater weight of the evidence that, question, the statement was made or published by Ms. Heard? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was about Mr. Depp? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was false? Answer, yes. Question, the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp? Answer, yes. Question, the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard? Answer, yes. Question, due to circumstances surrounding the publication of the statement, it conveyed a defamatory implication to someone who saw it other than Mr. Depp? Answer, yes. Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice? Answer, yes. 2, as to the statement appearing in the op-ed entitled "A Transformative Moment for Women" in the Washington Post print edition and the online op-ed, "Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change," in the Washington Post online edition. Quote, "Then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out," end quote. Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes. Has Mr. Depp proven by a greater weight of the evidence that, question, the statement was made or published by Ms. Heard? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was about Mr. Depp? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was false? Answer, yes. Question, the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp? Answer, yes. Question, the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard? Answer, yes. Question, due to circumstances surrounding the publication of the statement, it conveyed a defamatory implication to someone who saw it other than Mr. Depp? Answer, yes. Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice? Answer, yes. 3, as to the statement appearing in the op-ed entitled "A Transformative Moment for Women" in the Washington Post print edition and the online op-ed, "Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change," in the Washington Post online edition. Quote, "I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse," end quote. Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes. Has Mr. Depp proven by a greater weight of the evidence that, question, the statement was made or published by Ms. Heard? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was about Mr. Depp? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was false? Answer, yes. Question, the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp? Answer, yes. Question, the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard? Answer, yes. Question, due to circumstances surrounding the publication of this statement, it conveyed a defamatory implication to someone who saw it other than Mr. Depp. Answer, yes. Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice? Answer, yes. As against Amber Heard, we, the jury, award compensatory damages in the amount of $10 million. As against Amber Heard, we, the jury, award punitive damages in the amount of $5 million. In civil case number CL 2019-2911, Ms. Heard's claim against Mr. Depp. 1. As to this statement, appearing in the April 8, 2020 online edition of the Daily Mail, quote, Amber Heard and her friends in the media use fake sexual violence allegations as both a sword and shield, depending on their needs. They have selected some of her sexual violence hoax facts as the sword, inflicting them on the public and Mr. Depp. Do you find that Ms. Heard has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, no. 2. As to this statement appearing in the April 27, 2020 online edition of the Daily Mail, quote, quite simply, this was an ambush, a hoax. They set Mr. Depp up by calling the cops, but the first attempt did not do the trick. The officers came to the penthouses, thoroughly searched and interviewed, and left after seeing no damage to face or property. So Amber and her friends spilled a little wine and roughed the place up, got their story straight under the direction of a lawyer and publicist, and then placed a second call to 911, end quote. Do you find that Ms. Heard has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes. Has Ms. Heard proven by a greater weight of the evidence that, question, Mr. Waldman, while acting as an agent for Mr. Depp, made or published the statement? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was about Ms. Heard. Answer, yes. Question, the statement was seen by someone other than Ms. Heard. Answer, yes. Question, the statement was false. Answer, yes. Do you find that Ms. Heard has proven by clear and convincing evidence that the statement by Mr. Waldman was made with actual malice? Answer, yes. 3. As to this statement appearing in the April 27, 2020 online edition of the Daily Mail, quote, we've reached the beginning of the end of Ms. Heard's abuse hoax against Johnny Depp, end quote. Do you find that Ms. Heard has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, no. As against John C. Depp II, we, the jury, award compensatory damages in the amount of $2 million. As against John C. Depp II, we, the jury, award punitive damages in the amount of $0.
All right. Does either side wish to have the jury polled?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Jamie?
Members of the jury, if this is your verdict, please answer yes. If this is not your verdict, please answer no. Juror number 6. Yes. Juror number 10.
Yes.
Juror number 15.
Yes.
Juror number 16.
Yes.
Juror number 22.
Yes.
Juror number 27.
Yes.
Juror number 29.
Yes.
All right. I do find that the jury's verdict is unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes your service in this case. I want to thank you again for your dedication and your hard work during this trial. And I know I speak for everybody here when I tell you that we appreciate your sacrifices and your time and your public service in this matter, okay? So I'm going to have you go back to the jury deliberation room for one more time, and then we'll release you from there, okay? All right, thank you.
All right, a little bit of a split ruling there, right?
right.
I mean, the jury awarded
accordance with
Depp
law,
$15 million in compensatory damages, but also Amber Heard got $2 million. So it's they did split it a little bit.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Far short of what both of them were seeking,
Right.
but not a slam dunk for either side
No.
necessarily. And of course, there is an alleged abusive relationship at the center of all this. Let's see if we can process what we heard and what this means. Let's bring back in our CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law professor, Jessica Levinson. Jessica, what did you hear? What does this mean?
Well, exactly what you said. This is a mixed verdict. It's interesting. As we were moving along, so there were 6 statements at issue, 3 on each side. And as we were moving along, after 4, I wrote to myself, this looks like a total repudiation. It looks like a full win for Depp and a complete repudiation of Heard. And then we have that one win for Heard, where the jury found that one of the 3 statements in the Daily Mail that was made about her was in fact defamatory. So my new takeaway after that was the jury found they both lied. Neither one comes out looking particularly good. And I will say this jury was careful. This verdict indicates that they really took every statement in isolation. They looked at the elements of the tort of defamation. They looked at the fact that they're public figures, that it's a higher standard of proof. We heard that you need to show actual malice. And they really took each in isolation. It wasn't just a statement of, we like Johnny Depp, we don't like Amber Heard. The fact that it's a mixed verdict indicates to me that the jury took their job very seriously. Of course, who comes out, I think, better, it's more of a win for Johnny Depp. He wins all 3 of these statements that he sued for defamation. Heard wins one of the 3. She gets less in damages. But again, the end of the day, I think the punchline is the jury found that they both lied.
Yeah, right. And the jury did find that, Heard acted with actual malice. I wonder, does that have a legal definition that relates to monetary damages?
It does. Well, not necessarily to monetary damages, but the legal definition is that when you sue for defamation and the suit is with respect to a public figure, that you can't just show that you should have known that the statement is false, that a reasonable person would have known that statement is false. It's a higher standard when it comes to public figures. So you have to show that you knew or you had reckless disregard of the falsity of the statement. And that's in part because once you're somebody who's part of the public forum, we think that you have the bully pulpit, you have a bullhorn to respond, to say, no, that isn't true, that we don't want to be as protective of you as maybe a private person who can't try and rectify the situation. But with respect to actual malice, I think it plays into what the jury decides, but a jury could find actual malice and still say $1 in compensatory damages.
Right. All right. Well, Jessica, stand by for a moment, if you will. We want to bring in CBS News correspondent Christina Ruffini, who is there outside the courthouse in Fairfax County, Virginia. Christina, what are you seeing? What kind of reaction is the crowd outside the courthouse displaying?
It was very quiet as they started to read the verdict, and then as they came back with that first, the first reading, because each of these sections were split up into different questions, right? Was the statement false? And the jury found that yes, the statement was false, and then you heard a cheer from behind me. And then it was, was the statement indeed about Mr. Depp, as he had alleged in his defamation suit? And when the jury found that it was, you heard another cheer behind me. And then the part that you were just talking about, that real and actual malice, anyone who's been a journalist, anyone who's taken media law, that is a sentence that just makes your core shake, because that is the thing that has to be proven in order for you to sue. If you're a public figure, you have to be able to prove real and actual malice. That's from an old Supreme Court case that involved the New York Times. It's been a precedent for a long time. So as your legal expert was saying, the bar is higher. So that to me was when, you really knew that this was going, at least on those first few charges, in Depp's way. It was going to go Depp's way, and you heard behind me the crowd started chanting, Johnny, 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 and then there were more and more cheers. Now, as the verdict continued and it started to get a little muddier, it was a little more quiet. We haven't really heard much from them since, and that is very interesting that we had a split verdict, and that, it goes to what we were talking about earlier. This was messy, this was ugly, this was nasty on both sides, and it seems that this jury has recognized that, and even though it does seem that Johnny Depp has come out slightly on top, no one is, no one's emerging unscathed from this, and it's hard to find a good guy, I guess, when you're looking at something that, as we said, is just sad. The devolution of a marriage, allegations of this sort are just not happy, and the verdict is over. Hopefully that means people can start to move on, but the crowd behind me is still there waiting for Amber Heard, who is here, to come out.
It's a very good point, and it's a highlight on the issue of domestic violence among couples. Of course, a woman accusing a man is one thing. Johnny Depp made accusations that Amber Heard was abusive towards him. It really has put a spotlight on what is likely something many regular folks experience and don't have the resources to have these types of million-dollar cases.
Totally. I mean, I agree. Domestic violence is one thing and should be put in a box. But in these kinds of cases where you're looking at a marriage and it's messy like that, it's hard to. There are no heroes and villains. Do you know what I mean?
Nobody really wins.
Nobody wins. But instinctually, the public wants to say this is the good guy and this is the bad guy when it's really not that clear-cut in real life.
Rachel Fezay is the co-founder and a managing partner of the LA law firms Wybeck, Fazer, and Coleman. This was a civil case. It seems like each side got some level of compensatory damages. Any possibility based on this outcome, it could lead to either a criminal case or other types of appeals or something else down the line?
I definitely don't think this will lead to a criminal case. The jury in the civil case found basically that Amber Heard was lying about the abuse that she spoke about. So I don't think that in a higher standard, which would be the criminal case, that a jury would find that she was abused. So I think that forecloses that. And I actually don't think a criminal case was necessarily on the table anyway. But I think the jury flat out found that she was lying. And it's a pretty damning verdict when you think of that malice standard. A clear and convincing standard of malice means the jury believed that she lied about this in this publication to harm Johnny Depp.
Can I just ask you, how unusual of an outcome is this in cases like this?
Defamation is fairly difficult to prove, particularly when you are suing a public figure or when it is a public figure that's claiming the defamation, because there is a higher standard. You have that malice standard because public figures are talked about all the time. So they actually elevate the standard for a superstar like Johnny Depp or any type of public figure. So he had a pretty high burden to win this case. And he did.
I want to go back really quickly to our CBS News legal contributor, Jessica Levinson. Jessica, so now doing the math here, it seems like Amber Heard owes Johnny Depp $13 million, right? He was awarded $15 million. She was awarded $2 million, if I'm doing the math correctly. What if she doesn't have $12 million? I mean, what happens next? What realistically happens in terms of the exchange of money, or is all of that just symbolic?
No, it's not necessarily symbolic at all. So this is a remedies question. And the question is, if she says, look, I don't have it, it's not there, you can look in my bank accounts, then we can talk about things like garnishing her wages when it comes to future employment. I'm having a memory that I'm sure will feel like ancient history to some people of the O.J. Simpson trial and the civil case where he was in fact found liable for the deaths. And what happened in that case is he said, look, I don't have the money. And we've had a lengthy fight about trying to obtain the money for the victim. That's not an unusual situation where somebody says, I can't fulfill this. And so I certainly think because she has high earning potential, we could be looking to see maybe the next time that she is employed, maybe the next time she earns a lot of money, part of that will have to go to the settlement.
Can I ask, because much of this we've spoken about has been an issue debated in the court of public opinion, and we had already spoken before this verdict that in many ways Johnny Depp had come out looking better than Amber Heard because much of his position was corroborated by others, her claims were not. Is there a scenario at all where the Depp team might turn around now and say, we won the case, you owe us the money, but don't worry about it, so to speak?
Well, so what can you do with a jury verdict? I mean, Johnny Depp could decide to say, pay me and I'll pay you right back. You're going to pay me and I'm going to give it to charity. So, and excuse me, I said settlement, not verdict. We are talking about a verdict here. That would be much more likely in a settlement where he would say, look, I've vindicated myself. My job here is done. So even though the arbitrator or the mediator said, found in favor of me, let's say that 0 is fine. I think in this case, it'd be much more likely to see him potentially say, I'm giving this to a charity for domestic violence. That would probably get him more PR points.
But Jessica, you made the point earlier that her future earnings could be docked, but these are celebrities, right? And one of the reasons that Johnny Depp brought this case against Amber Heard to begin with is that he claimed her allegations were affecting his future employment prospects, right? So it's not at all clear that Amber Heard has stellar employment prospects in Hollywood after this.
It's not at all clear. And I didn't mean to imply, of course, she can just pick up the phone and she'll be able to satisfy this judgment. And we certainly do have judgments throughout the country where they do stand unsatisfied, where the jury says you owe this much money and the other side has just never paid that. But I will say, if we were, for instance, suing somebody who was engaged in a different line of work, $2 million might seem completely outlandish. It is possible that over the course of her career, although, again, we don't know what's going to happen to her career prospects, that she would be able to satisfy this.
Jessica Levinson, thank you so much. We want to cross over to our correspondent outside the courthouse, Christina Ruffini, who's been listening and hearing some of the reaction from so many people who have been following this in person. Christina, what can you tell us now? Is the mood any different? Fewer people? What's up? What's going on?
It's about the same. The crowd seems to be holding. And actually, as we were standing here, I was telling you people were like piling in here to try to get here for the reading. I saw a young woman literally sprinting up past us all the way up the hill. She missed it, but she was trying to get there. We've seen interest. Our interest is high. Passions are high. Passions were high outside the courthouse, inside the courthouse throughout this entire thing. But, as we've been talking about, this is not just about this case as much as it's, the verdicts should only apply to the case that they're decided for. But there's always a spillover effect. So what we're going to have to look for is, do we start to see in more high-profile divorces? Is it, there's always lawsuits, there's always courts, but is it less about divorce court now? And do people start suing each other then for the statements that people have made in divorce court? It could get continuously more messy. One of the things I was thinking about as we were standing here is, remember, we had that false start where the judge came in and told the jury they had to fix the paperwork because they hadn't put down anything for compensatory damages. And we assumed that was related to the Depp part of the trial. But now if you think about it, it seems the most logical explanation for that was because they awarded, they didn't award any they awarded the $2 million to Amber Heard, but no compensatory damages. The jury, it seems, most likely forgot to put that 0 in the line, and I'll leave it to our legal experts, but I think that's probably what was going on there. But, as we said, it was a surprise that it was a split verdict, but it goes to prove that they thought, yes, she was lying, yes, she knew she was lying, yes, she acted with real and actual malice, but he didn't tell the whole truth either. Right.
It's interesting because the scene you're describing out there, Christina, sounds like it's mostly pro-Depp. Are you seeing any sort of Team Heard people out there outside the courthouse?
I haven't seen them here today, but, I did see a bit of a pushback on Twitter today. And again, it was about this concern for domestic violence victims. But there's another side to that as well, and that's men who are victims of domestic violence. And there have been men's groups saying, look, the fact that Johnny Depp was coming forward and saying he was a domestic violence victim, that is a good thing for men, feeling like, they are strong if they come forward. They don't have to be ashamed of what's happened to them. They can take their cases to police officers and won't be laughed out, because if this big star like Johnny Depp can do it, you can do it too. So there's all different facets of this, and there's all different teams, and there's all different sides, and that's certainly what we've seen. And now we're going to have to sit back and see where this fallout lands and where it goes. I think that's an interesting point, what he decides to do with the money. It would make the most sense, I would say, to donate it to some sort of domestic victims charity, because there is a bit of a backlash about a lot of the vitriol and a lot of the memes and a lot of the internet hatred towards Amber Heard. However you feel about her, she is a real person. So that might mitigate some of that in the public eye. And since for Johnny Depp, this was mostly about the public eye and mostly about, recapturing his community and his fans and letting, proving himself as the person many of them thought they were in his mind, that would be a way to take that kind of over the finish line. I would imagine his PR team. Look, I'm not an entertainment reporter, but there's a lot of crisis communications here in Washington I've dealt with over the past couple decades. And that seems like the move, at least from where I'm standing here on this lawn.
Christina, thank you. Let's cross now to Rachel Fizet, who's been watching this happen with all of us. And I'll just say, as the sole male on this panel, it does jump out to me the point Christina made about there are men who have allegations of abuse against their partners, and they're just too embarrassed, quite frankly, to come forward and say as much. What do you make of the outcome, and does this have an impact on other folks who don't have as many resources, perhaps following in Depp's footsteps here?
I agree that it may have an impact. I think the impact is more on women generally, that they should not come out because Johnny Depp was a clear winner. So I think that is a little bit more of the impact that is likely. But I agree. I don't know if a regular old man, and nothing against you, would have the same kind of star power in fighting this kind of case. I think Johnny Depp brings a certain star power. He brings something with him in the way he's fought it and the way that this case went down, and he connected with the public and the jury. So I would venture to say that the more likely impact is that women would be discouraged to speak out and use their First Amendment rights to free speech as it relates to domestic violence. Or maybe it has no impact at all, and in this case, they just found that she wasn't being
Rachel, to your
truthful.
point, it could have a chilling effect on women who have legitimate domestic violence complaints and don't have as many resources as these actors. I mean, that's a horrible thing to kind of consider.
That's the fear. The fear is that she was met with such hatred, with such vitriol, and a clear loss when she spoke up. And that is the fear, is the chilling effect that women won't feel comfortable in bringing these types of allegations forward.
But Rachel, in some ways, that's the whole problem with this circus, if you will, around this trial, because we're talking about two Hollywood celebrities, right? So it's very hard to extrapolate what this means for the average Joe and Jane, right, who is going through a divorce. In some ways, we want it to represent so much more than it is. These are two celebrities. It's very specific.
It's very specific, and it's very high profile, and it feels like it's not particularly relatable to average people. So if it is taken as an anomaly, in the anomaly, frankly, that it is, then hopefully everybody continues on as they are. It's just that it is so high profile. And frankly, the op-ed wasn't particularly devastating towards Johnny Depp. She wasn't running his name through the mud over and over again. It was more about her experience as someone who believed she suffered domestic violence, that would have the chilling effect, because she was just speaking up, saying she met a wrath, and again, she met a wrath. So that's the fear, but this case is a clear anomaly.
I kept thinking when we were watching the trial, here are two actors on the stand, both telling their version of the story. And there was a lot of he said, she said, right? Exactly. The same situations described very differently by each individual. And you can't help but wonder, well, these are professional actors, right? So how much of this is them acting? How much of them is telling the truth? There's just no way of knowing.
We see a little bit of activity outside the courthouse. Perhaps some of the legal teams will address the press. Christina Ruffini is there, keeping track of how things have changed since the jury announced its verdict. $15 million being awarded to Johnny Depp, $2 million to Amber Heard. Christina, what's happening now?
Well, as we've been waiting, Amber Heard has released a statement on Instagram. I'm going to read it for you guys right now, but, bear with me. Okay, it says, "The disappointment I feel today is beyond words. I'm heartbroken that the mountain of evidence still was not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power, influence, and sway of my ex-husband. I'm even more disappointed," she writes, with what this verdict means for other women. It is a setback. It sets back the clock to a time when a woman who spoke up and spoke out could be publicly shamed and humiliated. She writes, "It sets back the idea that violence against women is to be taken seriously. I believe Johnny's attorney succeeded in getting the jury to overlook the key issue of freedom of speech and ignore evidence that was so conclusive that we won in the United Kingdom. I'm sad I lost this case," she says, "but I am sadder still that I seem to have lost a right I thought I had as an American to speak freely and openly." So that's what's just come out on Instagram. That's a lot to digest, but it goes to some of the issues we've been talking about, and we'll have to see what comes in the days and weeks to come. As you said, we're waiting for the attorneys to step out behind us. So far, it's been nothing much. I don't know, maybe she was back there writing this or at least posting it, waiting before she came out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure there will be an outpouring on social media. It'll be interesting to see how Johnny Depp reacts to this. As we know, he is not there. We're assuming he's heard of the verdict by now, but he could be in rehearsal or shooting a scene, who knows? So it'll be interesting to see what his reaction is.
Thank you, Christina. Let's quickly ask Rachel
Thank you,
Fizet,
guys.
because with that information Christina just reported, Amber Heard is still saying that his attorney succeeded in getting the jury to overlook the key issue of free speech and ignore evidence that was so conclusive, she says. So this perhaps gives us a hint that she insists she was accurate. Does this provide any legal liability if she continues to say, "I did not lie, I told the truth"?
I don't think so. I think that there is a privilege in litigation as it relates to your case, and those kinds of statements would be considered under that privilege. And so she has the freedom to say, I believed my case, and I believe this was decided wrongly. So that she should be completely in the clear on that type of statement.
All right. And Rachel, we are, as you know, waiting for both teams of the attorneys to come out, make a statement. What do you think Heard's lawyers will say?
I think they will echo her comments. I think they will say that this is a sad day for domestic abuse survivors. I think that they will continue to believe that they had this correct, and they will say the jury got it wrong. I mean, that's what I think they will. I think they will. They're not going to back down simply because they lost the case.
And as you said earlier, no chance for an appeal.
I don't see a chance for appeal on this, but if they can, I don't see a chance, but they may come up with an argument as it relates to, again, focusing on exactly the free speech element of this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rachel Fizet, thank you so much for your time. We also heard from our correspondent, Christina Ruffini, outside the courthouse, and Jessica Levinson, our CBS News legal contributor, as we all just watched live the jury verdict here in the Depp-Heard trial. A real split decision, Depp being awarded $15 million, Amber Heard being awarded $2 million, with the issue of domestic violence at the core.
I think, and it just speaks to the messiness of human relationships, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this is about two people, about a marriage that went horribly wrong, and that there are a lot of different perspectives to how that marriage went wrong. It's sad. It's very sad. I mean, we look at it, from up high. They look like sort of, Olympian gods, but they're really just people. And it's tragic to see a marriage unravel that way. And I think the jury listened very carefully to both sides. And that's probably why they came up with that mixed decision, even though they did seem to weigh more heavily in Johnny Depp's favor.
That's right. And now you just hope that they can both go back to their lives, that the kind of media attention and the kind of fanatic following that people have from this case can now, ease as people get on with their lives.
Absolutely.
And they do as well.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but we've got a lot more news ahead, so stay with us. You're streaming CBS News, always on.
CBS News Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley on CBS.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
It's gonna be big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars. Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.